Hello and welcome to another episode of A Brief History. Today's episode, Five Nights at Freddy's. Ready, set, go! Summer in the United States during the early 2010s. What can I say? It's a mysterious franchise. Independent game developer Scott Cawthon creates and submits several titles to Steam Greenlight, including Sit and Survive, The Desolate Hope, and Chipper & Sons Lumber Corporation. However, the reception of these games from critics and players, particularly Chipper & Sons, was incredibly negative, with many pointing out that all of Scott's characters looked terrifying and moved unnaturally, similar to animatronic puppets. These negative comments deeply affected Scott, and while he was initially discouraged, he internalized the animatronic idea and decided to incorporate it into his next game. You see, YouTube commenters, negative comments only make us stronger. So Scott began work on a horror game that was a massive departure from his previous, oftentimes Christian-themed video games. And the result of his work was a title that he called Five Nights at Freddy's, which put the player in the shoes of a security guard at a Chuck E. Cheese pizzeria ripoff. But this wasn't any normal creepy pizzeria, it was a maybe haunted creepy pizzeria, with the animatronics Freddy Fazbear, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, and the mysterious / definitely a ghost Golden Freddy coming to life at night and wandering the halls looking to murder the player by stuffing them into one of the inoperable animatronics. Just a normal day at the job. Five Nights at Freddy's was a pretty interesting horror game because it gave almost no power to the player, who was unable to move other than looking from side to side. Their goal was to survive the week, trapped in their office while keeping track of the animatronics on the pizzeria's security camera system. However, the player only had a limited amount of power, which was required to look at the cameras and to shut the doors to the office, creating a unique mixture of both resource management and point-and-click adventure? I mean, Freddy and Bonnie maybe look a little bit like Sam and Max, but that's not quite right. Point-and-click survival? Point-and-sit? There's point-and-click stuff in this game, that's what I'm getting at. You point and you click, but it ain't no King's Quest. FNAF was released on Desura on August 8th, 2014, and was approved for release on Steam Greenlight later that same month. Not to mention the title and all of its sequels also eventually found their way onto iOS and Android devices. Critics felt that Five Nights at Freddy's was a massive improvement over Scott's previous games, praising the subtlety in its design and its less is more approach to the mechanics. But critical reception aside, no one will be able to deny that FNAF was an unexpected commercial success. The title was discovered by several YouTube Let's Players like PewDiePie, Markiplier, and Jacksepticeye, which led FNAF to become a viral sensation. The title exploded, selling hundreds of thousands, if not millions of copies, while simultaneously giving huge bumps to the viewership of many YouTube channels that covered it. The game's open-ended lore and story shrouded in mystery also drove many parts of its fanbase to start speculating and theorizing about its hidden secrets. And one channel in particular did this quite a bit. Now, I'm not gonna say who they are, but you're probably at least a little bit familiar with them. I mean, they're alright. They may or may not have just won a Streamy for Best Gaming Channel. MBD. You're familiar with how the one guy yells a lot and then wants to die because he's out of breath constantly. Woo-hoo. Needless to say, given how successful Five Nights at Freddy's was, a sequel was to be expected. What was a surprise, however, was just how soon players would get their hands on this new game, as Five Nights at Freddy's 2 was released on November 10th, 2014, only 3 months after its predecessor. FNAF 2 was a prequel, taking place in 1987 with the player taking control of another night watchman at a Freddy Fazbear pizzeria. This game switched up the mechanics of the first by giving the player an unlimited power supply to no doors. No doors to protect themselves from the horde of animatronics that wandered the hallways during the evening. What? The only way to protect yourself here was to shine your flashlight at some of the robots or hide from others using a spare Freddy mask, hoping to trick them into accepting you as one of their own, at least for a little while. In addition to the returning animatronics, there were several new ones in this title, some of which required the player to manage new resources, like a music box that must be wound up lest you suffer a shocking puppety death. What's more, FNAF 2 featured several hidden minigames styled like old Atari 2600 titles. These Easter eggs further expanded the franchise's lore and would become staples for future entries in the series. While the critical reception of Five Nights at Freddy's 2 was slightly lower than that of the first game, its quick release after the first game kept the franchise's rabid fanbase and following on YouTube hungry for more information about the game and its world, and they wouldn't have to wait long for another sequel to bear its head. Ha! Did you see what I did there? Bear head. It's not funny. Anyway, Scott did not rest after the release of FNAF 2, immediately beginning work on another sequel. And in January of 2015, he teased a new installment in the franchise appropriately titled Five Nights at Freddy's 3. This title was released on March 2nd, 2015, again, just months after FNAF 2 came out. Five Nights at Freddy's 3 once again shook up the series formula, taking place more than 30 years after the original game and featuring just one animatronic. The player again takes the role of a night watchman, this time at a horror attraction based on Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria, trying to outsmart the the haunted animatronic as it makes its way through the building and towards the player. Like FNAF 2, Five Nights at Freddy's 3 was relatively well received by critics who praised its updated camera system but felt that its jump scares were getting a bit old. However, at this point in the series, Scott understood that much of his success came from the virality of FNAF gained from YouTubers and streamers playing the game, and so he offered a free demo to select personalities one day before the final game hit online marketplaces. So just to recap here, Scott Cawthon released 3 decently well-received games that were basically a mushroom cloud of popularity, all in under a year. That is insane! But the craziest part is that he wasn't anywhere near done. You see, while at first, FNAF 3 was assumed to be the finale of the series, in late April of 2015, Scott once again started posting teaser images for what he called Five Nights at Freddy's The Final Chapter, eventually revealing a trailer for Five Nights at Freddy's 4, which he released on July 23rd, 2015. So really, that makes it 4 games in just under a year. Once again, FNAF 4 took the mechanics introduced in previous games and turned them on their head, putting the player into the role of a small child trapped in their bedroom, trying to survive an onslaught of nightmarish animatronic creatures plaguing them during the night. For the first time in the series, the player was actually able to move around their room, looking through different doors and seeing their environment from different angles. And while the critical reception of this 4th game was mixed, fans still ate it up, attempting to decode its hidden messages and hoping to find closure for the franchise's increasingly dense narrative. So at the end of all of this, with 4 games released in just under a year, Scott decided that it was time for a slight change of pace. In late 2015, he took a break from his main series games and co-wrote a novel with writer Kira Breed Risley titled Five Nights at Freddy's The Silver Eyes, which was released on December 17th, 2015. Even stranger, however, Scott decided that his next Freddy game would not be a survival horror game, but instead a bright and colorful turn-based RPG spin-off featuring the franchise's animatronic characters known as FNAF World. Seriously, this game and its announcement were so off the wall that a lot of people thought it was just a fake PR stunt to advertise a true sequel to FNAF 4. But FNAF World was indeed real and was released on January 21st, 2016. However, several critics and YouTubers criticized the title for having unfinished gameplay and a variety of bugs and glitches, which led Scott to acknowledge his mistake and take the game down. He even offered refunds to anyone who had bought the game and was unsatisfied with what they had purchased. He later completed work on the game, ironing out its flaws, and re-released it for free on February 8th, 2016. But again, FNAF was far from over. On the contrary, the franchise is only continuing to grow and expand. A few months following the release of FNAF World, a teaser trailer was released for Five Nights at Freddy's Sister Location, a 5th installment to this series that was already supposed to have ended twice. Sister Location was originally slated for release on October 7th, 2016, but as that date drew closer and closer, Scott began having second thoughts about the game. In an update post on the Sister Location Steam page, Scott said that he felt this game was actually too dark, so much so that it kinda made him sick. And because of this, he was thinking about delaying the game in order to rework the plot to be more, quote, kid-friendly. However, Scott understood that this would not sit well with some fans, and thus he made a compromise. On October 4th, 2016, Scott announced that Five Nights at Freddy's Sister Location would officially be delayed by approximately 2 months. However, he also announced that he would be releasing the original mature version of the game in chapters, essentially publishing the game one night at a time. Although he has essentially declared this version of the game to be non-canon and asked that true fans of the FNAF series wait a couple of months for the official game to be finalized and released. And thus, Scott promptly uploaded the first night of Sister Location MA to GameJolt, deeming it unfit for Steam. So I guess there's technically a new Five Nights at Freddy's game out, but it's non-canon, kinda disliked by its own creator, and a different, more complete version is set to come out in just a couple of months. And while this is a pretty interesting development in the series, I'm not really sure what it's gonna lead to, so I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Except for the part where none of this was actually true, because if you went to the GameJolt page for Sister Location MA Night 1, it was Sit and Survive with a FNAF head. Scott pranked us. He pranked the heck out of us, and I fell for it. I legitimately fell for it. What's wrong with me? So yes, Five Nights at Freddy's Sister Location did actually come out on October 7th, 2016. And having been given perhaps the longest development cycle of any game in the series, it stood out from its predecessors almost immediately. This game featured the most cinematic storytelling elements of any entry in the series thus far, with full voice acting and even a few legit cutscenes. But deeper than that, this was the very first Five Nights at Freddy's game to have the player not just moving, but moving in between different rooms, avoiding the new animatronics and performing performing various tasks. And unlike the previous games, every night and sister location featured different objectives, ranging from robot maintenance to manually rebooting the security system, all while doing your best to avoid death by animatronic. Essentially, Sister Location was the first game in the series that progressed more like a story, rather than simply getting more and more difficult like an old school arcade game. And so far, the reception of Sister Location reflects the growth it brought to the franchise, boasting some pretty positive reviews from fans and some decent praise from critics. And look at this freaking twirly twirl ballerina Ballora crap. This is terrifying. Any movement of the animatronics in a FNAF game is just instantaneously noteworthy. Like that Freddy thing moving in the background of Five Nights at Freddy's 3, or the entirety of the Joy of Creation Reborn. Just no, man, that's terrifying. No! And on top of this new game, FNAF is only further cementing itself as a bit of an icon of the indie gaming world. With fan games aplenty, toys being sold in all sorts of stores, and both console ports of the series and a Warner Brothers film adaptation currently in the works. And yes, I will be all freaking over a console port of the Five Nights at Freddy's series. What can I say, PC Gaming Master Race? I'm a console dweller, don't judge me. Five Nights at Freddy's is perhaps one of the most unexpected success stories in the history of indie gaming. One developer decided to take a risk and step out of his comfort zone for just a single game, and what resulted became arguably the biggest name in indie gaming since Minecraft. And love it or hate it, that success is undeniable. And you can argue about the game's quality and whether or not it's been overplayed as much as you want, but at the end of the day, Five Nights at Freddy's stands as a testament to how far the indie gaming scene has come and how far it can spread in the future. And all of this, because one guy took a risk and made something different. Thanks for watching, guys. DFTBA. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching my Five Nights at Freddy's brief history. I hope you liked it, and speaking of something different, I've actually started making brief histories over on my personal channel, FootofaFerret again. And the situation is that all episodes of a brief history about video game franchises will be hosted here on the Game Theorist channel. But over on the FootofaFerret channel, I'm pretty much free to talk about whatever I want, and I usually like to talk about YouTubers and bands and other pieces of pop culture that I'm a fan of. And if you head on over to my channel right now, there's an episode up all about one of my favorite channels on this website, Ninja Sex Party. I worked with my buddy Lee from the Breakdown series here on the Game Theorist and with Danny Sexbang himself to put this episode together, and if you go over and check it out, I really hope you like it. It was nice to go back and do something a little bit closer to the roots of this series, which used to be all about YouTube. So I hope you'll go check it out, and if you do, I really hope you'll like it, and I'll say it again, guys, thanks for watching, and DFTBA. Also, yes! Ow! Jeez, ow! All I wanted to say was that Five Nights at Freddy console version would be really cool, and I bit my mouth! I bit myself! Ow.